13 abducted female students of the Federal University of Gusau in Zamfara State and 3 construction workers have escaped from bandits' captivity following a sustained gun battle with troops of Operation Hadarin Daji and the suspected terrorists. This is in addition to the 6 female students rescued last Friday morning by a combined security operative while on the trail of the kidnappers. The students were kidnapped at their residence in Sabon Gida community early Friday morning by a group of heavily armed bandits. It was also gathered that another group of terrorists also abducted 9 construction workers the same day within the university premises. Authorities of the Federal University of Gusau has also confirmed the development, and they say that 13 students and 3 laborers were indeed rescued. The escaped have, however, reunited with their families. We now have joining us security consultant, retired Colonel Hassan Stan-Labo. He will be discussing the heightening insecurity in Zamfara State resulting in the recent kidnapping of the Zamfara schoolgirls and how illegal mining is fueling insecurity in the state. It's good to have you on Arise News. Now, I want to start with...
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being on here. I want to start with the girls who were able to escape from these bandits, so to speak. We've seen the governor of Zamfara State, Dauda Lawal, condemning and calling this cowardly attacks. But on the other hand, he has also gone ahead to say that illegal miners should be shot on sight. When you put these two side by side, how would you rate how the Zamfara State Governor has handled these two very pressing issues when it comes to insecurity?
Thanks so much once again. As a matter of fact, I think the current governor, I would say, has exercised or has displayed some political will to address the security situation on ground. First and foremost, by his pronouncement that he wasn't going to negotiate with terrorists or bandits or whatever. I think that was the right way forward. But I really hope he's got a good plan on ground to take care of that. I mean, to be able to contend with the situation on ground. Zamfara has become a pain in the neck of all the states. I think Zamfara, Plateau, our Southern Kaduna situation have all, I would say, be at the top of this bedeviling problem that seems to find no solution so far. I don't want to say we wasted the last 8 years, but the fact is that the last 8 years, the security situation on ground, especially in these 3 areas I have mentioned, Zamfara, Plateau, Southern Kaduna, and what have you, even way back at parts of the eastern states, became compounded because I think there was a lack of political will both at the federal level and some level of even complicity, which I would say we observed within leadership at federal and state levels. Let's see what is happening now with Zamfara, given the new leadership we have on ground, given the new military leadership too we have at the strategic level. I think we would get there. It's just a matter of time. I know of late we have suffered so much casualty, human casualty I mean now, and even some level of equipment casualty too. But I think we can get there if only we exercise enough patience, allow our resilience to come to play. Now that the military is beginning to have, I would say, the sort of support they require. Body language of the president also indicates a willingness to fight terrorism. We should all join hands. But the Zamfara leadership, the Zamfara governor, should also ensure that, or know that there is a need for a comprehensive strategic, approach to combat terrorism within his state and maybe the neighboring areas. all right? And such comprehensive approach should see all stakeholders, dialoguing together. I mean stakeholders, I'm referring to government reps, community leaders, church leadership, youth groups, women groups, and so on. Everybody should come on board. The situation cannot just be left to a few individuals, whether they are officials or they are military personnel. Security is everybody's business, all right? The situation in Zamfara has gotten offhand completely. And we know, I keep saying this has been encouraged either passively or otherwise by the past leadership. We've had governors in Zamfara that up to today, some of them are still speaking, in support of these terrorists and bandits, calling for amnesty for them, calling for discussions with them, and so on and so forth. We can't negotiate with these terrorists. Don't tell me amnesty was granted to some chaps in Niger Delta and so on. They are two different cases.
Yes, indeed.
These ones are criminals, and we must deal with them like criminals.
We certainly hear you. Of course, you mentioned that there's need for a comprehensive approach to combat terrorism in Zamfara State and also surrounding states. But I'm wondering if you're content with the level of collaboration that you're seeing with the governor of Zamfara State and the other states surrounding the northeast.
I think I am not yet satisfied with that level of synergy amongst the chief executives. I'm not seeing what I expect to see. I expect to see some form of coming together of these governors, not just to do or engage in unnecessary talking, but actually delving into actions and so on. I'm not seeing how much of mobilization is ongoing in communities, especially communities that fall within the realm of ungoverned spaces and so on. Some of these rural areas are just being neglected. And that's why these guys walk in to some of these places and pick up school children where schools exist. Be they Quranic schools or whatever, they pick up kids, okay? And pick up a few, one or two government officials here and there, and off they go with no serious challenge. And one disturbing aspect also is that what are the governors doing that about 50 guys riding on motorbikes can move into a given community, seize up the place, pick the individuals they want to pick, and still ride off, passing through communities with nobody challenging them, passing through all sorts of... What are we doing? What is the level of surveillance ongoing? What is the level of cooperation between security agencies on ground and the state government?
Now I'd like to take it to
what is the role of the
buttress more on
police?
that, if you don't mind. Regarding what you're talking about, collaborative measures, would you say that the different approaches that's been applied by various governors is causing this lack of your contentment in the collaborative efforts? I'll give an example. For instance, in Niger State, where our troops were killed recently, we did see reports that the governor said that he would potentially be open to having dialogue with terrorists. And we've also seen in different cases, like in Zamfara, where the governor said that would never happen. So when you see various approaches like this by being employed by various governors, do you think that is also fueling this lack of collaboration on their parts?
I don't see what level of collaboration the governor wants to go into with bandits or terrorists, that he's going to discuss with them. Am I right? That was what you said?
Yes, I said in Niger State, there were reports that the governor said he was open to having discussions. But we also see in states like Zamfara where the governor said that wouldn't happen. So when you have various governors employing different methods in dealing with this terrorism or security issue, do you think that is hindering collaboration since they're using different approaches?
I think political leadership should be very careful not to overdouble in matters that might disrupt, or not to take lines of actions that might disrupt military lines of actions in addressing some of these issues. The Chief of Army Staff has made it quite clear he is not ready to negotiate. All right? All I expect a governor, if I were to be him, is to reach across to the Chief of Army Staff and say, my brother, you have said we are not going to negotiate. How can we address this problem? And let him know that, well, he has said he's not going to negotiate, and then he should be able to take care of the situation on ground. I know we have major problems in the national security sector. And these are all the issues that are, creating drawbacks at times in operational actions. For instance, till date, we are not yet recruiting at a commensurate level that will beef up manpower adequately for us to be able to address this, be it in the military, be it in the police force. The military cannot be everywhere the way they are far spread now, and such that you just find them in sprinkles here and there. And given the situation with Niger State, where, that is about the largest state we have in the country, if the military takes on an objective and they have been able, for instance, to recover a given territory, if they have to move forward to another task or to another objective, it is expected that the present ground they are holding should be handed over to civil authority. But where is the civil authority? When we talk of civil authority in this case, I'm referring to the police. Where is the police? We also have severe manpower problems with the police. And the few ones that are there are still carrying handbags, madam, up and down. So where is the manpower? The police should be adequately, enabled, manpower-wise, funding and whatever, to be able to play their role in IS, internal security, which is their primary responsibility. So that the military can only be coming in by way of assistance. Given the present situation where, as far as I'm concerned, the entire police has been overwhelmed, and even the military is only trying to see how we can hit these guys back. Fine. While the military is doing this, are we recruiting? In the last 8 years, we wasted all effort. We did not beef up manpower. We have just started. Can somebody really tell Mr. President we have a manpower issue in the national security sector? The big five, the perennial problems in the national security sector falls within what I call the big five: funding, manpower, logistics and equipment, training, and of course, motivation and welfare. If we address these 5 issues, we have solved 65% of the problems within the national security purview. Can we just be addressing this? Can Mr. President ensure that we are articulating, as I speak, a national security sector reform template? That document will help us a great deal. It will address most of these problems, looking at the generic and particularized issues within the ambit of that reform document. We need to sit down and begin to do this quickly.
All right, then. Thank you so much for, really putting it all on the table for us. Now, Zamfara State is not the only region grappling with the nexus between illegal mining and insecurity. And we did see the Emergency Security Council meeting convened to address the situation, especially in Zamfara State. Now, if you can just tell us what specific measure or strategy should be top of mind during such a meeting to address that issue of insecurity in the state, given the recurring incidents in the region. And also, I want to know what your take is about the Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Mr. Dele Alake, who issued a 30-day ultimatum for illegal miners to join cooperatives or face legal consequences. How critical is it for illegal miners to transition to legal and regulated operations?
Thank you so much. It's important. The step taken by Minister Alake is a step in the right direction. There is a need for us to transform these illegal miners from the informal sector into a formal sector. And that means that there is a need for them to get registered into all these, what do we call them now? The various, platforms which you mentioned, all right? They must get registered, get documented, so that we know who is where, who is doing what, how much revenue the country is deriving from them, and so on. Of late, all the rubbish that has been going on in the mineral sector in this country is just like what we have going on with the oil theft situation in the Niger Delta. Okay? The same thing is going on. That must be stopped. And I want to make sure, I want to believe Alake is the right man to do the job, and let's see him do it. All right? Haven't gotten them, or when eventually they get formalized the way I think they should, then we'll see how much revenue will be coming out of them. 2, in this country, we talk a lot. We write a lot. We have all sorts of documents and solutions to everything. But implementation is the problem. Shoot at sight order. Once you have reorganized them, let us bring in the shoot at sight order for any illegality within that industry. Corruption still pervades in this country today because we have no sanctions that can really address them. Till today, we are still reluctant to reintroduce the death penalty into this country. And so an individual can carry billions upon billions away, and he gets stabbed on the wrist, and he goes away smiling away from the courts. All right? If not for some personal issues, people like Emefiele, nobody would have touched him. All right? So the point I'm making is that we must come out with sanctions if we really want to revive this country and put it on sound footing, if we want to do away with corruption and so on. And my prescription, I keep saying, is that the death penalty must be revisited. We need it in this country. A lot of people have got to go. We tell them goodbye.
Well, we definitely hear what, your take on that, but more on what you mentioned earlier, if you may. You said that manpower is definitely an issue in national security sector, and if the Big Five is addressed and we'll come up with a national security reform template, then about 65% of our issues will be behind us. But right now, you also just mentioned that we do a lot of talking in this country. So if this Big Five is addressed and the security reform template is put together, what would you like to see in terms of implementation to make sure that it's executed to the letter?
Definitely, with such a document in place, a lot of things will fall in line. All right? The police wouldn't be crying and bothering itself about funding issues because the document will speak as to the requirements of the police when it comes to funding. The document will speak as to the requirement of the police or the army or the air force or navy when it comes to manpower and so on. Okay, they need to beef up manpower. Right now in the army, for instance, we are increasing at the depot NA is training only about 5,000 per annum. That's annually, which is highly inadequate. When you minus those who are retiring out of service for one reason or the other, and the depletion we are suffering from the forward lines and so on, at the end of the day, you discover we are probably bringing on board just barely 3,000 hands and so on. So there is a need for us to expand training platforms or training facilities. We cannot just have only one depot in Zaria. We should have another depot in the east, have another depot in the west. Ibadan can give us that. During the wartime, I know we train soldiers in Ibadan. Ibadan has got enough land. We can have another right in the northeast there, and so on. So that per annum, the army can be recruiting about 20 to 25,000 personnel. Ditto to the police and other, security services. That addresses manpower issue. Go to logistics, go to equipment holding, and so on. With the increase in manpower and expansion of the army, or when I say army now, I'm using it in a generic sense, the armed forces. So an expansion of the armed forces, of course, it follows that equipment will also be beefed up. And so many other things will follow, okay? The issue of image of the police by virtue of what we see ongoing on the street and so on, the document will speak effectively. Then now, like I said, execution or implementation, those that should implement it should have the willpower to carry it out. But it's only unfortunate that we have been so eaten up by corruption in the system. It has permeated our marrow. If there are enough sanctions to take care of this, a lot of bad eggs will be weeded off. And we allow serious hands who are ready to play leadership role to come on board and run this country for us. We can't continue to bring in mediocres. You find mediocrity in a lot of places. I'm sorry to say this, it exists everywhere. Everywhere. Thank God we are done with the last 8 years. They've weeded a good batch of them off. I hope we don't recruit another batch this time around.
Well, just on a final note, I'm wondering, when you look at the correlation that is being established between illegal mining and the rise of insecurity in Zamfara State, how significant would you say that illegal mining has been in contributing to the significant rise in the state?
How has it contributed to the significant what?
I'm asking, when you look at the correlation that's being established between illegal mining and insecurity in Zamfara State, do you think that illegal mining has been truly significant in contributing to the rise in insecurity in the state, please?
Yes, of course, it has. Okay. I must tell you that, my dear, it has. Maybe, but this shouldn't be news to you, you're a journalist. You are aware that we have aircrafts that touch down in Zamfara and most of these mining spots to pick up minerals that have just been, harvested, so to speak, get loaded into aircrafts, and the aircrafts take off, be they helicopters, be they whatever. I'm even made to understand in some of these places who have a small runway, all this owned by Nigerians. Nigerians who, when you hear their names, you will not expect them to be involved. But when they come on TV, they talk like saints. Meanwhile, they are involved in killing this country. Yes, it has exacerbated, worsened, and, complicated the security situation in Zamfara. Because some of these aircraft even come with logistics airlift, logistics items for some of these bandits and terrorists. Unfortunately, we belong to a country where we claim we cannot monitor our airwaves. We do not know what aircrafts are touching down on our land and taking off. I find it very difficult to agree. No one can convince me that a helicopter or a mini plane can touch down somewhere without our aviation industry, including the military component of it, knowing what is going on. That an aircraft has illegally touched down and taken off. That is the same story we hear about our maritime corridor, where illegal ships come in, pick oil, and leave. Not until people like Peter Obi opened up a lot of cannon worms and the whole nation now went haywire so this is happening. So I think we need to be serious in this country. Frankly speaking, we are not taking Nigeria serious, and I'm afraid our children and grandchildren seem to be bedeviled because my generation, I'm in my 60s now, my generation seem to be killing this country completely, and those ahead of me. It is unfortunate. I wonder what we are going to bequeath to the younger ones coming up. It's unfortunate. We are a rich country with poor citizens, very poor citizens. Nigerians are barely managing to feed. Meanwhile, we are so rich. We are another DRC.
I think this is a good place to end this. Thank you for speaking so passionately to us. Security consultant and retired Colonel Hassan Stan-Labo. We thank you for your time and your analysis.